The fluorescent lights of Davidson and Associates hummed their usual monotonous tune as Marcus Chun sat hunched over his desk in the cramped cubicle farm on the third floor. It was 9:47 p.m. on a Wednesday, and the Manhattan office had long since emptied out, leaving only the distant whir of the copy machine and the tap-tap-tap of his keyboard breaking the silence. Marcus had been with the mid-sized consulting firm for 7 years, climbing from junior analyst to senior project manager through sheer determination and an almost obsessive work ethic. At 32, he had sacrificed relationships, weekends, and countless hours of sleep to prove himself in a company that never seemed to notice. His desk was a testament to his dedication. Stacks of client files organized with military precision, a coffee mug that read World's Okayest Employee, a gift from his sister who worried he worked too much, and a small succulent plant that somehow survived despite his neglect. On his computer screen, a financial projection model blinked back at him, the result of 14-hour days spent rescuing the Patterson account, a client worth nearly $4 million annually. The sound of expensive leather shoes clicking against the polished floor made Marcus look up. Richard Davidson III, the company's CEO and grandson of the founder, strutted past without acknowledgement. At 48, Richard embodied old money and older attitudes. His salt and pepper hair was always perfectly styled, his suits custom-tailored on Savile Row, and his entire demeanor screamed Ivy League entitlement. "Marcus, you're still here?" Richard's voice dripped with condescension as he doubled back, leaning against the cubicle wall with his arms crossed. "Yes, sir. Just finishing the Quinlan presentation for tomorrow's pitch." Richard let out a sharp laugh. "You know, Chun, I've been meaning to talk to you. You work hard, I'll give you that. But hard work isn't everything in this business." Marcus felt his jaw tighten but kept his expression neutral. "I understand, sir. Do you? Because I've noticed you've been asking HR about partnership track opportunities." Richard picked up a stress ball from Marcus's desk, tossing it from hand to hand. "Let me give you some free advice. This firm has been run by Davidsons for 3 generations. Our clients expect a certain pedigree, a certain presentation." Marcus knew exactly what Richard meant but refused to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. "I've brought in 6 major clients this year alone. And that's wonderful. You're a fine employee, Marcus. One of our best worker bees." Richard set down the stress ball with deliberate emphasis. "But leadership, partnership, that requires something you just don't have. Vision, presence, the kind of connections that open doors." "I've built my own connections," Marcus said quietly. "To Columbia?" Richard smirked, referencing Marcus's MBA from the business school. "That's admirable. Really. But it's not Harvard. It's not Wharton. It's not growing up summering in the Hamptons or having a father who golfs with Fortune 500 CEOs. Richard straightened his tie. "You're good at execution, Marcus. That's your lane. Stay in it." The words landed like physical blows, each one calculated to diminish and dismiss. Marcus had heard variations of this speech his entire career, sometimes whispered behind closed doors, sometimes delivered with Richard's particular brand of casual cruelty. "What if I wanted to start my own firm?" The question escaped before Marcus could stop himself. Richard's laugh echoed through the empty office. "Your own firm? Chin, do you have any idea what that takes? Capital, reputation, a client list that trusts you with their money." He leaned in closer, his cologne expensive and suffocating. "You'd never succeed alone. You need infrastructure. You need the Davidson name. Without us, you're just another consultant with a laptop and a dream." Marcus said nothing, his hands clenched beneath the desk. "Look, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm being realistic." Richard's tone shifted to something approximating paternal concern, which somehow felt worse. "You've got a good job here. Good salary. Benefits. Security. Why risk all that? You're not built for the uncertainty of entrepreneurship. Some people are owners and some people are, well, employees. There's no shame in knowing which one you are." With that, Richard checked his Rolex and headed toward the elevator, calling back over his shoulder. "Lock up when you leave, will you? And Marcus, stop working so late. It looks desperate." The elevator doors closed with a soft ding, and Marcus was alone again. He stared at his computer screen, Richard's words echoing in his mind. You'd never succeed alone. Not built for entrepreneurship. Some people are employees. Something hardened in Marcus's chest. A resolve that had been building for years, suddenly crystallizing into absolute clarity. He opened a new browser tab and typed in a search, how to start a consulting firm. Then another, small business loans. And finally, business acquisition strategies. The Quinlan presentation could wait another hour. Marcus had planning to do. 3 months passed, and Marcus's double life intensified. By day, he remained the dutiful senior project manager, delivering flawless presentations and managing difficult clients with his trademark precision. By night, he transformed into something else entirely. A man building an escape plan brick by calculated brick. His studio apartment in Queens became mission control. The walls were covered with printed spreadsheets, client contact information he had meticulously memorized rather than stolen, and business plans revised so many times the margins were filled with notes in 3 different ink colors. He survived on coffee, takeout Chinese food, and a burning determination that grew stronger every time Richard dismissed him in a meeting. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in April. Marcus had just closed the Hartwell account, a technology startup worth $2.3 million in consulting fees, after weeks of relationship building and strategic planning. He walked into the weekly executive meeting expecting at least an acknowledgement of the win. Great news about Hartwell, Richard announced to the room of senior partners, all of whom looked remarkably similar in their Brooks Brothers suits and Princeton ties. This is exactly the kind of client we need. Young, hungry, scaling fast. I knew my approach would resonate with them. Marcus felt his blood pressure spike. Your approach? Richard didn't even glance his way. The partners understand vision. Chun. You executed well as always, but these relationships are built on trust at the highest levels. Thomas, Richard turned to the COO. Let's discuss the profit-sharing structure for partner-level contributions on Hartwell. For the next 45 minutes, Marcus sat in silence as the partners discussed bonuses and distributions for an account he had won entirely on his own. Not once did Richard mention his name. Not once did anyone ask for his input. When the meeting finally ended, Marcus followed Richard back to his corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Richard, we need to talk about attribution on the Hartwell account. Richard barely looked up from his phone. What about it? I brought them in. Every meeting, every proposal, every negotiation was me. And you used company resources, company reputation, and the Davidson name to do it. Richard set down his phone with exaggerated patience. Marcus, this again? You're an employee. The company owns the relationships. That's how this works. You want credit? Become a partner. Oh wait, we've had that conversation. The dismissal was absolute. Marcus stood there, watching Richard return to his emails as if he were invisible, as if 7 years of loyalty and excellence meant nothing. That evening, Marcus made the call he had been preparing for. His contact at Sterling Bank, a woman named Patricia whom he had helped with a pro bono consulting project 2 years ago, answered on the second ring. Patricia, it's Marcus Chin. I'm ready to move forward with the business loan we discussed. He paused, staring at the city lights from his small window. And I need information about acquiring an existing firm, specifically one that might be more vulnerable than it appears. The next 6 months transformed Marcus into someone he barely recognized. He worked with a financial advisor who specialized in leveraged buyouts, attended networking events he once considered above his pay grade, and quietly reached out to every client contact he had ever made at Davidson and Associates. What he discovered changed everything. Davidson and Associates was drowning. Beneath Richard's expensive suits and country club confidence lay a company hemorrhaging money. 3 major clients had left in the past year, frustrated by outdated methods and Richard's refusal to adapt. The firm's reputation ran on legacy, not results. Younger consultants were fleeing to more innovative competitors. The numbers told a story Richard was too arrogant to see. His company was dying. Marcus learned this through Sarah Kim, Davidson's CFO, who had watched him work for years with quiet admiration. Over coffee at a neutral location in Brooklyn, she slid a folder across the table. These are public filings, nothing confidential, she said carefully. But someone smart could read between the lines. She met his eyes. Someone smart could also know that certain board members are tired of watching Richard run this company into the ground out of pride. Marcus opened the folder. Declining revenues. Mounting debts. A commercial real estate investment Richard had made personally that went catastrophically wrong, forcing him to leverage his company shares as collateral. The banks were circling, and Richard was too proud to admit he needed help. How much would it take? Marcus asked. Sarah wrote a number on a napkin. With the right financing structure, the right backing, and the right timing. That's what someone would need to acquire controlling interest. She pushed the napkin toward him. The board meets in 3 months to discuss emergency measures. Richard doesn't know it yet, but they're considering forcing a sale to preserve what's left. Marcus stared at the number. It was astronomical, impossible, completely out of reach for someone like him. Except it wasn't. Not anymore. Between his savings, Patricia's bank backing, and 2 angel investors he had cultivated who believed in his vision, he was exactly $300,000 short. He called his sister Jenny that night. She was a pediatric surgeon in Boston, successful in her own right, and the only family member who had always believed in him. Jenny, I need to borrow money. A lot of money. And I need you to trust me without asking too many questions yet. There was a long pause. How much? He told her. Another pause, longer this time. When do you need it? 2 weeks. His sister laughed, the sound breaking with emotion. Marcus, I've watched you get stepped on your entire career. Whatever you're doing, I'm in. Wire transfer or certified check. If you're watching this and you've ever been told you're not good enough, that you don't have what it takes, stay with me. Because what happens next proves that the people who doubt you don't get to write your ending. Hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get very interesting. The boardroom of Davidson and Associates had never felt so small. Marcus sat at the far end of the mahogany table, flanked by Patricia from Sterling Bank and his attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca Torres who specialized in corporate acquisitions. Across from them, 6 board members shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs. At the head of the table, Richard Davidson III looked like a man watching his world collapse in slow motion. This is absurd, Richard sputtered, his usual composure shattered. You can't be serious. Chen works for me. He's an employee. Worked, Marcus corrected quietly. Past tense. The board chairman, Gerald Thornton, a 72-year-old veteran of 3 Fortune 500 companies, cleared his throat. Mr. Davidson, the financial reality is clear. Your personal debts have compromised the company's stability. The bank is calling in loans you secured against your majority shares. Mr. Chen's offer is not only legitimate, it's the best option to preserve this firm and the jobs of 63 employees. Richard's face flushed crimson. This company has been in my family for 3 generations. And it will die in yours if something doesn't change. Sarah Kim said flatly from her seat beside the board members. She had resigned 2 weeks earlier, only to be hired immediately as CFO of Marcus's newly formed entity, Chun Consulting Group. The numbers don't lie, Richard. You've lost $12 million in revenue over 2 years. You're 3 months from bankruptcy. Richard turned his fury on Marcus. You did this. You poisoned them against me. You stole my clients, my staff, my company. Marcus met his former boss's glare without flinching. I didn't steal anything. I built relationships you ignored. I delivered results you took credit for. And when you told me I'd never succeed alone, you gave me the motivation to prove you catastrophically wrong. Patricia slid the acquisition documents across the table. Mr. Chen's consortium is offering $42 million for a 70% controlling stake. You'll retain a minority position and a seat on the board, but operational control transfers immediately. The alternative is watching the banks seize everything in foreclosure and walking away with nothing. The room fell silent except for the sound of Richard's heavy breathing. Marcus watched the man who had belittled him for 7 years grapple with a reality he never imagined possible. The pedigree Richard had been so proud of, the Harvard degree, the family legacy, the country club connections, none of it had prepared him for this moment. You can't do this, Richard whispered, but the fight had drained from his voice. Actually, Gerald Thornton said, signing the first page of the agreement we can. And we are. One by one, the board members signed. Sarah Kim signed as the appointed CFO of the new ownership group. Patricia signed on behalf of Sterling Bank. Rebecca Torres signed as legal counsel. Finally, the documents slid in front of Richard. His hand trembled as he picked up the pen. When he looked up at Marcus, there was something beyond anger in his eyes. Fear, perhaps, or recognition that the natural order he believed in had been nothing but illusion all along. The first Monday morning as majority owner felt surreal. Marcus arrived at the building at 7 a.m., using the executive elevator for the first time in his career. The corner office that had belonged to Richard for 15 years was now his, though he had insisted on keeping his acquisitions modest. New furniture could wait. What mattered was the work. His first meeting was with the entire staff at 9 o'clock. 63 employees packed into the main conference room, their faces a mixture of curiosity, anxiety, and in some cases, hope. Richard sat in the back row, his expression carefully neutral, playing the role of supportive minority stakeholder even as humiliation burned behind his eyes. Marcus stood at the front. No podium, no PowerPoint, just him and his words. "I know you're worried," he began. "Change is scary, especially when it happens fast. But I want you to know something. I'm not here to gut this company. I'm here to save it and transform it." He looked around the room, making eye contact with colleagues who had shared the trenches with him. For too long, this firm has coasted on legacy while the world moved forward. That ends today. He outlined his vision. A shift toward technology consulting and digital transformation services. Partnerships with AI firms and sustainable business practices. A merit-based promotion system that rewarded results, not pedigree. Profit sharing for all employees, not just partners. Investment in training and development. And one more thing, Marcus said, his voice steady. "I'm promoting several people effective immediately." He read names from a list. Junior analysts who had shown initiative. Project managers who had been overlooked. A 26-year-old coder named Devin who had been stuck in IT support despite having brilliant ideas about process automation. Each person looked stunned as Marcus explained their new roles and increased compensation. Several had tears in their eyes. This company succeeds when everyone has a chance to prove what they're capable of, Marcus continued. Not just the people who went to the right schools or know the right families. Everyone. After the meeting, Richard approached him in the hallway. His swagger was gone, replaced by something that might have been resignation. "You really believe all that, don't you?" Richard asked quietly. Marcus turned to face him. "Every word." Richard nodded slowly. "I underestimated you. Clearly." "Yes, you did." Marcus paused, then added, "You can still be part of this, Richard. You know this industry. You have relationships that matter. But you have to check your ego at the door and actually listen to people who know things you don't." Richard's jaw tightened, but after a moment, he extended his hand. "I'll try." The handshake was brief, professional, and Marcus knew rebuilding any real trust would take years, if it happened at all. But it was a start. That evening, Marcus stood in his new office, looking out at the Manhattan skyline as the sun set behind the buildings. His phone buzzed with a text from Jenny. "So proud of you, little brother. Dad would be too." Marcus smiled, thinking of his father, an immigrant who had worked 2 jobs to put him through college, who had died believing his son would do something important someday. He finally had. 18 months later, Marcus stood on the stage at the Javits Center in Manhattan, addressing over 2,000 consultants, entrepreneurs, and business leaders at the National Innovation in Business Conference. The banner behind him read Chun Consulting Group, building tomorrow's solutions today. The transformation had exceeded even his most optimistic projections. The company had grown from 63 employees to 140. Revenue had increased by 300%. Fortune magazine had featured him in their 40 Under 40 issue with the headline, "From Cubicle to Corner Office: How Marcus Chun Rewrote the Rules." Harvard Business School had asked to write a case study on his acquisition strategy. But the numbers were never what mattered most. In the front row sat Devin Martinez, the former IT support specialist who was now Chief Technology Officer. having developed an AI-powered consulting platform that became the company's signature offering. Next to him was Maria Gonzalez, a single mother and former junior analyst who now led the company's fastest-growing division. Sarah Kim had been named one of the top CFOs in the industry by Bloomberg. Richard Davidson sat further back, no longer resentful but not quite comfortable either. He had slowly learned to contribute rather than command, and while their relationship would never be warm, it had evolved into something resembling mutual professional respect. He ran the legacy client relations department, a role that suited his strengths while limiting his ability to derail progress. As Marcus finished his keynote speech about inclusive leadership and the myth of natural-born entrepreneurs, the audience rose in standing ovation. But his eyes found Jenny in the third row, her face beaming with the pride only a sister could have. Next to her sat Patricia from Sterling Bank, who had taken a chance on an ambitious project manager with more vision than collateral. Later that evening, back at the office, Marcus walked through the space one last time before heading home. The culture had completely shifted. Laughter echoed from the open-plan work areas. A yoga class was wrapping up in the wellness room he had installed. The walls displayed employee innovation awards, not portraits of past executives. He paused at his old cubicle on the third floor, now occupied by a bright 24-year-old analyst named James who reminded Marcus of himself 7 years ago. Hungry, talented, overlooked. Marcus left a note on the desk. "Keep pushing. Your ideas matter. We're watching." As he rode the elevator down, Marcus thought about Richard's words that night so long ago. You'd never succeed alone. Some people are owners and some people are employees. Richard had been wrong about everything except one thing. Marcus hadn't succeeded alone. He had succeeded because he built a team, because he lifted others up, because he proved that the old gatekeepers didn't get to decide who deserved a seat at the table anymore. The doors opened to the Manhattan night, and Marcus Chun walked out into it, no longer proving anything to anyone but himself. Thank you so much for watching this story until the very end. If it inspired you, if it reminded you that your current position doesn't define your future potential, please hit that like button and drop a comment below. What dream are you working toward that others have told you is impossible? Share your story. Subscribe to this channel for more incredible true stories of people who refuse to accept the limits others placed on them. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share the next journey with you. Until then,